All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the substitute teaching information session for McGill students. We're going to primarily focus on the Montreal region, and we're going to walk through a whole bunch of stuff today, so I'm going to get started with that. So here's what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to talk about job search in Quebec, specifically for teachers and for students in teacher education programs. For those who are not from Quebec and are not familiar with what that looks like, we're going to first review a portrait of education in Quebec, then the typical hiring timelines, and then finally I will share some best practices for you to take action. Then we will get into the nitty-gritty. We will talk about specific application procedures for specific school boards. We worked hard to get up-to-date information so that you're all as well informed as possible. We will also talk about the Centre de Service Scolaire, because some of you may be comfortable teaching in French and want to go and practice substitute teaching in French environments. And then finally, we will talk about how to substitute teach and approach substitute teaching in independent schools. So here is the portrait of education in Quebec as it currently stands. So schools in Quebec are divided into, I would say, three main categories: English schools, French schools, and Indigenous schools. If you break down the English schools, there are the public school boards. And for the public school boards, you apply centrally to HR. So you're not applying to each specific school individually. You're applying to central HR to obtain an employee profile and get access to substitute teaching and contracts at all the schools on the board. So this is the main approach you want to take. We'll talk a little bit later about other approaches you may want to take, but that's the main one for English public schools. And that would apply for the same for the Centre de Service Scolaire in the French sector. You apply centrally to central HR, and then they give you access to substitute teach and to take contracts at all their schools. For the independent schools, there are two main associations in Quebec. So there's one for English schools called the Quebec Association of Independent Schools. And with this one, they don't take charge of hiring at the central level. You want to apply to each school separately because each school has its own recruitment process and hires its own teachers. Same thing with the FEEP or the FEEP. You apply to each school separately. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then finally, Indigenous schools, it's a bit of a mix. Sometimes they have schools that are fully independent and others that are part of regional boards. So you just want to inform yourself if there are Indigenous schools near the Montreal area, do you apply to the regional board or do you apply to the schools directly? All right. So continuing on, there are 9 Anglophone school boards in Quebec, and they're all listed here. They're all listed in approximate proximity to the McGill campus. So starting off with English Montreal School Board, I know in the registration form, I asked students which boards they're most interested in subbing at, and by a long shot, EMSB was the most popular answer, obviously due to its proximity to McGill campus. And then Lester B. Pearson School Board, we're going to talk about where all of these 9 school boards are when we go into their specific slides. But we'll be covering the top 5 of these today because they're actually in commuting distance from McGill. The rest, number 6 through 9, are quite far away. You're probably not going to be able to substitute teach there, at least during the academic year. So between September and April. If you live in one of those regions and you want to substitute teach there in the spring, you can start your application now, but I think it's best if you wait until about March to get that application going for the spring summer months. And then on the French side, there are over 60 Francophone Centres de Service Scolaire. But of course, I'm going to talk mostly about the Montreal region today. So we'll talk about the 3 that are in closest proximity to McGill. Finally, as I mentioned, there are private and independent schools. So they hire independently. You may have to approach schools individually or check the association websites. There's 3 associations listed here. I would say that the first 2 are the ones you'd want to inform yourself about. They have lists of their schools on their website, so you can always navigate to their websites and take a look at those lists. I also want to thank Kim for giving us an updated look at the compensation for substitute teachers. It does get updated quite regularly, and you get paid based off of the rates set below. So you are taking a look at the non-legally qualified category because you're not quite finished your degrees here at McGill yet. You're not legally qualified to teach. You don't have your brevet d'enseignement. And the remuneration above corresponds to an assigned 60-minute substitution period. So of course, if you're working more than 60 minutes in that day, you would use that to calculate the rate that you would be getting for your substitute teaching time. Kim, do you have anything to add here? I don't know if I explained that super clearly.
No, that's actually perfect. Like it comes out to like we often say it comes out to almost $1 a minute. If you're qualified, it's a little dollar a minute. It's a little bit under if you're not qualified. It used to be in segments, you know, up to an hour to 3 hours, but now it's honest to goodness, it's just by the minute or
Okay.
by the hour, I should say. So
Yeah.
they do calculate it prorated. You get a little bit of like 5 minutes between classes you will get paid for. The one thing to know is that if there's a spare, you don't get paid for the spare, even if you're in the building. But
Mm,
often what happens is the secretary will say, oh, when you have your spare, could you please step into this classroom? So it's just to sort of know that when you look at an opportunity that a spare isn't paid.
okay. Perfect. Good to know. Another thing to note is typically like taxes and all that are taken off as well. So
Yeah.
your paycheck when you get it will not reflect this exact figure. I mean, it will, but then there will be taxes and deductions as you would in any other job, right?
And
So,
there'll be a tiny little union fee attached as well because
okay.
when you're working as a teacher, you're represented by a union.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So don't expect to get the full amount paid to your bank account. There are obviously taxes and deductions that will be taken off. Okay. So what are the typical hiring timelines? Um, I'm going to start us off in February because usually the local school boards operate kind of on an annual hiring basis where they tend to fill their substitute teaching pool once a year. Again, this is going to depend for various schools and school boards. I believe Kim for New Frontier School Board recruits all year round, so
Yep.
you could submit your application to her anytime. But I know there are other schools that prefer to do their hiring annually. So we're going to talk about that typical hiring timeline. So in February, I highly encourage you all to attend the McGill Education Career Fair. It's going to be the first week of February this year. Look out soon, the exact date will be announced. Even if you're in your first year, even if you're not graduating soon, come start talking to people, start networking, make connections, and ask this information so that you're better informed. March and April, you want to submit your applications to the board, like I talked about earlier, especially with the public school boards, you have to apply to the central HR. You're not going to be applying to each school individually. So this is when you want to create your application for that central HR. This is when you want to start contacting private schools and keeping an eye on those independent school association websites. This is when you want to attend recruitment events, either at McGill or externally. And then some school boards may start interviewing as early as March. Throughout the spring, there may be more interviews depending on their hiring needs that year. You can attend some virtual job fairs. There's a few of them hosted by Apply to Education. Notably, I believe there's one for Quebec English sector schools, so you can always try and check that one out in the spring. And then finally, in August, there's a lot of last minute hiring that happens. It's a good time to reconnect with your network and go in person to schools just to say, hey, I'm still available. Do you need any subs? That kind of thing. The reason why I don't include July on this timeline is because pretty much all teachers, school administrators, principals, HR, everybody takes that well-deserved time off. So if you're trying to reach someone in human resources or try and get a job in that month, you're probably gonna not get a reply. So I would say you should probably save sending those emails until August. Okay. All right, so how to take action. So check the school board websites regularly. The information I'm sharing with you today is current as of today. It could change tomorrow, it could change next week or next month. So don't always just refer back to this presentation. You should go and inform yourself directly with the school board that you're interested in. Apply regularly to job postings. So what I mean by that is I know for sure that the Centre de Services Scolaires, they wipe their applicant bank every year on July 1st, and they start fresh for the following year. So if you've applied and you haven't heard back from CSSDM or something like that, you would want to apply again the following year after their application bank has been wiped. You can send cold applications, so you can try and send emails, or you can try, especially to the private or independent schools, you can try applying directly and don't forget to follow up. You can contact employers to see if they're hiring, so principals will know their hiring needs. Also, HR will know their hiring needs and see if they're hiring at the time. Make sure you network with schools in your area and the people in the field. So anyone you met through your field experience or your internship in the teaching community, stay in touch with them. Ask them what their tips are. Hey, how did you get a position as a substitute teacher? Or ask even your fellow classmates, because your classmates, if they're subbing somewhere, as a student, they probably found a way to navigate into the system. So ask them if they have any advice. Set up career conversation to expand your network. So, meet with people, talk to them. Hey, how did you get started in this school or this school board? What makes your school or school board stand out? That kind of thing. And then get your foot in the door. So again, your field experiences or your teaching internships are a good place to start. But maybe you want to continue in that school by helping it with an after-school club, tutoring, extracurricular activity, etc. So just being a familiar face in that school environment, if they really need, and if they have a last minute need for a contract, or they want to add you to their sub list, they're going to be much more familiar with you, and they're going to be much more willing to advocate on your behalf to the central HR team. The last tip I'm going to say is to let your family and friends know that you're looking. The education community is smaller than we think. So, you might know someone whose cousin is a teacher. Maybe you want to connect with them and ask them some questions, set up a career conversation, that kind of thing. Okay. The other way to stay up to date on hiring needs is by opening and reading your career update. So this is your McGill education newsletter. We collect job opportunities from employers, and we compile them all in one email, and we send this email to you once every 2 weeks. So look for that. There was one that was sent today, or you can follow the ISA education Instagram. We tend to put the postings from the newsletter on our Instagram as well. Like I said, they reset their recruitment bank every year, so it's not a problem to apply more than once. All right, so talking about the applications themselves, different school boards. As I mentioned, the majority of you who answered which school board you want to work at, the answer was EMSB. So they do their substitute teaching hiring. You have to submit an application, so your CV and a well-crafted, well-written, tailored cover letter to jobs@emsb.qc.ca. I would recommend that in the subject line you put like substitute teaching application, maybe your name, maybe that you're a McGill student or what subjects you teach. Definitely EMSB is a little bit more competitive to get into. Obviously, they're located in an urban area. They have a lot of applicants. So they do prefer applicants or candidates that have a completed teaching degree or a bachelor's in a teachable subject to be considered for substitution. So if your B.Ed is your second degree, or if you're in the MATL program and you already have a previous bachelor's degree in a teachable subject, you may be considered for substitution. Whereas if the B.Ed is your first university degree, you probably don't have a huge chance of getting hired as a substitute teacher unless you've completed your FE3 or your FE4 in one of their schools. So student teachers in their FE3 and or FE4 may be exceptionally granted a substitution card for the school they are currently doing a field placement in, and only at the request of a principal. So you have to get to know the principal in your field experience, gain their trust, demonstrate that you're ready and a professional candidate for a substitute teaching opportunity. And then EMSB might give you what's called an emergency substitution permission for that school specifically. However, you will not have access to substitute teach at all EMSB schools. So that being said, you're going to probably follow with EMSB the typical hiring timeline we went through a few slides ago. And you will do an official interview with HR in your graduating year. And this is typically scheduled in March. And then the candidates who successfully pass their interview will be able to then open an employee file and receive authorization to substitute teach. All right, so for the Lester B. Pearson School Board, so this school board covers kind of the western region of Montreal Island and beyond. So you want to view and follow the instructions on the teaching section of their Join Our Team website. Again, they have requirements for eligibility, so they prefer candidates who have a legal qualification to teach, so a brevet or a permis from the Ministry of Education. Candidates who have completed their B.Ed or MHL with a brevet pending are given second priority, then fourth year B.Ed students. Again, there's an exception. So student teachers in their third year of their B.Ed program or in an MHL program on field experience or internship can be considered for emergency substitution at that school, again, on special request or strong endorsement from the principal. However, you will not have access to Scalago, which is like their substitute teaching app. You will only be able to substitute teach at the school that you have a contact. A few other things to note about Lester B. Pearson. So MHL students may be eligible for emergency substitution even without internship 1 or internship 2 completed at a Lester B. Pearson school. Again, it's case by case. You'll have to iron that out with HR directly. And then if you do get that permission, again, until you obtain your brevet, you will only be allowed to work at 3 schools maximum. It does not mean you're a full status substitute teacher. So if you have special permission from your FE3 or FE4, or if you have this emergency sub permission, you will still have to go through an official board interview before getting hired as a full-time employee. So option 1, if you're in your FE4, you should have an interview with the school principal during your final field experience, and therefore you will not have to attend the annual recruitment session in March. Or if you're not at an FE4, in an FE4 placement at a Lester B. Pearson school, you're going to go through the regular recruitment season, which is in the spring. So they will be posting the info in February 2026. And please note that the ability to teach in French is always an asset and should be clearly indicated on your CV. Once you're approved for hire, then you will be sent an employee kit and authorized for Scalago, which is their automated substitution platform. So for Savoir-Laurier School Board, they are located in the Laval region and further north from that as well, into kind of the Laurentide region. Again, they have a certain level of priority, and they will obviously take certified teachers over non-certified teachers to be added to the sublist. In previous years, their HR representatives have stated that any and all B.Ed students who have completed minimum 30 credits, so that's your first full year in the program, should apply for substitute teaching opportunities as soon as possible. So again, they obviously prioritize certified teachers, but if you've completed 30 or more credits in your education program, you can apply. You can send your CV to them directly, or you can apply on their careers page. So they are one of the boards that has a bank that kind of wipes every year. So sorry, this should say June 2026. And then they will send a list of documents required to open your file. Typically, this includes like your McGill transcript, any CEGEP transcript, valid ID, that kind of thing. And then once all the required documents have been received, then your file will be open and then you'll be able to substitute teach at any or all of their schools. Okay. Um, and that's it for Sir Wilfrid Laurier. For Riverside School Board, this is on the South Shore of Montreal, so includes like Brossard and Longueuil. You will submit a substitute teacher application through their online application portal. They welcome MATL and U3, U4 B.Ed students to apply, or if you've completed an internship or field experience at the school board. Please note you may not be required to do an interview, but a reference from the school principal is needed. So go to their jobs website if you're interested in Riverside. I'm going to pass it to Kim to give her slide on New Frontier School Board.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Porter. I am the recruiter for the New Frontier School Board. I don't know how many of you know about Scalago. We use Scalago as our absence management tool for all teachers, and therefore all substitution goes through Scalago. We have a very open door policy for education students. We feel that you, even in your first year, if you're feeling comfortable and you want to start substitute teaching, we are more than happy to welcome you. If you have experience with children, whether working at a summer camp or daycare or something similar, off you go. We're happy to have you start. If you need a little bit of time to shadow perhaps a teacher, see what happens during the day, we can set that up for you as well. Like all school boards, we do prioritize teachers with a license. We do want you, we would prefer if you had 30 credits or an undergraduate degree, in that field. However, saying that, we do have, like I mentioned, that open door policy where we do allow you to start once you're feeling confident. We truly believe that it's a way for you to check us out and for us to check you out too. Sometimes you find that with an open door policy, you try different schools and different grade levels, and you start to see what you really want to work with. We have a substitute teacher pool, as we call it, in the New Frontier, on the New Frontiers website. We do open a new pool every year. It's not that we wipe it out, but we do open it up to keep it fresh. And if you are working presently for another school board on Scalago, you can simply add us to your profile and it will trigger an email to me, and my colleague will set up an interview for you online with me. That is the only requirement that we truly ask at the very beginning, is that we do a small 15-minute interview, because you haven't done one of your internships with us yet. We don't know you. So you'll meet with me, we'll talk a little bit, then Brenna will send you an employee kit and we'll get started. What I would like you to know though, however, is people say, oh my goodness, Chateauguay is so far. It's not really far. 4 of our schools are accessible by bus and metro within about 40 minutes. So if you live near a metro station or you drive, it's truly not that far. We have many, many teachers who have joined us over the last 3 years that live on the West Island, that live downtown, that live in Montreal West. From the airport to our school board in the morning, it's about 30 minutes. That's it. You're against the traffic. And our schools start super early. So you finish early and you're ahead of the traffic in most cases. So, we often say try and sub where you live, but also expand your horizons. One thing the New Frontiers School Board does not use are subcards. We use Scalago 100%. So you do not need, like I just repeat myself, you do not need to have done a stage with us. You just need to make sure that you have a Scalago account, you keep it up to date, and the door is open.
All right. Thank you, Kim. No, I think that's a great point to make, is you can definitely expand your horizons and try different things out as a student. And I highly recommend checking out New Frontier School Board. It's not, as Kim says, it's not as far as we think.
Nope, not at all.
So I'm going to cover quickly the Centre de Service Scolaire. For the CSSDM, They have two contacts they wanted to share. So they have one contact for the jeune, so the youth sector, and one for the adult sector. So if you're ever, um, questioning whether you're eligible to apply to them or not, I recommend you email first and then you apply through their enseignement portal. They tend to, again, because of their proximity to downtown, they tend to be a little bit more strict on the requirements. And as you can see the little star there, they really do require a proof of French proficiency before you even apply. So you will have had to complete the CFranc or the CEL French exam before submitting your application. Without it, they're probably not going to look at your application and move forward with you as a candidate. Okay. With the Centre de Service Scolaire Marguerite-Bourgeois, that's more, again, West Island, moving west into um, the Western region past Montreal. They want you to refer to their career page to put your CV there. Again, they really want you to have proficiency in French and a proof of French. So having passed, they say Franc or CEL before you start. And they want you to have, just be eligible to work in Canada. So if you're a Canadian citizen, you were born here, you don't have to worry about it too much. But if you're an international student or from elsewhere in the world and you want to substitute teach, they really ask that you have a valid work permit before you submit your application. For a CSSPE, simply complete the online application. Again, if you have questions before submitting or during the time you're submitting your application, you can contact their human resources directly. So you can use that contact email there and they will help sort you out. So we're wrapping up here for the independent schools. Again, you don't apply to these associations. You go and you send your CV to the head of school or to HR via email so you can see the full list of schools. They also have job boards on their website, so they often put job opportunities on their QAIS careers or the Emploi FAEP pages, so you can take a look at their up-to-date hiring needs through those links. So there is a substitute teaching policy. So if you are in a placement with McGill, so if you're doing one of your field experiences or your internships, I highly recommend you review this policy. I believe you can substitute teach for your CT and your CT only. So for your cooperating teacher, I don't believe you can kind of ditch your classroom and go substitute teach elsewhere in the school. But again, go through that policy carefully. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to the placements team here at McGill. Kim was very generous and organized a great info session last January with the other HR professionals from other school boards in the Montreal area. So I highly recommend you watch it as you're preparing your CV and cover letter because they give really great specific tips of what they look for during the recruitment process. What things should you include on your CV? What things should you be writing in your cover letter? And how to prepare for those substitute teaching interviews. Okay, so this is on the ISA YouTube page. You can always go back and review that great info session Kim and her colleagues gave last year. And then finally, there are some Facebook groups. I know a lot of our students are no longer Facebook users, but I would at least recommend you join the Quebec Teachers Facebook group because there's a ton of really great educators in the province. It's kind of like a Reddit forum a little bit where you can post a question and lots of experienced educators will give you some tips and guidance, usually within a few hours. There's some active members on there, so or maybe you can browse through some of the questions that have already been asked and see the answers that people have given so that you can help navigate the teaching process in Quebec as well, just based off of advice from other educators. Okay. From what I know, the EMSB and the LBPSB substitute teachers groups are only accessible to those who become employees at those boards. So once you get set up with your employee number, that kind of thing. You could request to be part of those groups. And then again, substitute teachers, or sorry, teachers in the field might post, hey, I'm going to be off on this day in October for a dentist appointment. Can anyone cover it? And then sometimes those things happen organically through there. They're supposed to go through Scalago or other official means, but sometimes teachers use Facebook groups as well. Okay. So here are some questions we received in advance. So I'm going to hand it over to Kim to talk about some of these questions.
Hi. So, when can students apply for a subcard? I will be very honest and say that this is not how the school board I work for runs. So I think, though, from what I understand, is that once you have done an internship at a school, Lester B, English Montreal, you can ask to be placed on their substitution list. From what I understand, I think it's the principal who approves it. I would say always ask the secretary at the school that you're subbing. The secretary knows everything. So if you have any questions about that when you do an internship, that's the way to go. Talk to her. One quick thing I will mention, different policies in different schools and different school boards. When you sub, ask the question whether or not you need to fill out a timesheet. When different platforms for absence management, some automatically say, oh, no, I know who you are because you took it on Scalago. Some secretaries are old school and expect a timesheet. If you are not using your full name or your government name on Scalago, they may not always know who you are. So just make sure that you use your full name when you give them any information at the school. On Scalago, I always say use your full professional name. And if you have a nickname, put it in brackets so that, they can always find you. They can, because it does also lead to a little bit of delay in getting paid, which you don't want that happening either. So for subcards, talk to your secretary at the school that you do your internship. If you're with Lester B or Riverside, I think the school boards that use Scalago, it's very, very different. You don't need a subcard for the schools that use Scalago.
Yeah.
What are the steps for international students? You have to be able to work in a school. You have to have a work permit that allows you to be in a school. That's the other thing. Sometimes work permits have huge restrictions on them. We have international students who have substituted for us, but you have to verify your work permit. You have to have your social insurance number. You have to have all your pieces put together to make sure that you're allowed without jeopardizing your status here.
Yeah, absolutely. A few more here.
A postgraduate student, is it possible to seek a job opportunity? Of course. Of course. If being a substitute teacher is also about being comfortable around students, having classroom management, and being organized. You have to be able that throughout a day where you're not necessarily the one that's done the prep. You have to be able to roll with what's happening. You have to be comfortable in that situation. So whether you're in the BA or post-grad student, of course you can apply. We have students in all different fields that are substituting for us. It's also about your character and how you feel it being, a little bit in chaos and, different situations and different classrooms and different grade levels. So, but what you can always do as well is reach out to me or to another school board and ask them if they would accept you. We would, and we would set up an interview and you and I would have a conversation. What kind of experience do you need? Experience can be very varied. I have many people who say, oh, I've worked at summer camps for years and years and years. Some say I taught swimming. Some say I was a lifeguard, a camp counselor, I coach rugby. There's all different things that actually give you so much experience that going into a classroom, you're comfortable. So we do want first years who would sub for us to have some experience in the field, coaching, day camp, something to that effect. That's why it's not as intimidating for you if you haven't done a stage yet. But minimal experience, you also get it while you substitute teach. That's the point of it.
All right.
Did I screw up the screen? No.
No,
Okay.
the next one's here now, yeah.
Are substitute teachers required to remove their religious symbols? as much as I have my personal opinions about this, Belle, and we all do, yes, you have to remove it. It's the law. It's just the law. Could you please talk about the recruitment process for our first year teaching? The recruitment process is basically what Lara has beautifully explained. You have to get yourself out there. You have to apply. You have to figure out how school boards do their process. One of the things is if you email their general email address off their website, it can be a little bit frustrating. You don't get an answer right away. Um, like I have people say, "Oh, I emailed yesterday, nobody answered me." If you do a generic email to like HR at whatever, it has to be triaged. That's the one thing to remember. General emails have to be triaged. So on any given day, our HR email has 200 emails in it. People from employees asking for letters for the bank to people asking to check out, insurances to somebody applying to substitute teach. It's a catch-all. So when you're out there for the first time, it's really about learning how to manage the system or how to figure out how each school board works. Lara has presented it perfectly. Everybody's had their input. So, you just got to figure out where you need to go. My biggest piece of advice is before you apply to a school board to substitute teach, make sure you can get there.
Hmm.
I yeah, I have tons and tons of applicants, and I'll have somebody who's by bus email me, set up an interview, do the whole thing. They live in St. Leonard, RDP. That's not accessible for us by bus. That's a big trek for you. But
Hmm.
saying that, you live in Verdun, you're 40 minutes away. You know, if you're by car, you're 25 minutes away. So everybody has their what's accessible. So I always say check out the schools, check out where you can go before you submit a request to substitute teach, because nothing is more discouraging for a secretary or for a staff member or a teacher to get in contact and then the person say, "Oh my goodness, that's really far. I can't do that."
Yeah.
Because then you've put that person back. But if you say, "No, I can get to that school," you're golden at that point. So do a little bit of your own homework before you reach out.
Absolutely. And a good place to get contact, just to add on, Kim,
Yeah.
is at the career fair, right?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, if you go to the career fair, you present yourself well and you say, "Hey, can I have your direct contact details so I don't have
Yep.
to email the general HR inbox?"
Yep.
If you've made a good impression, most of the HR folks that are going to be at the fair will be happy to give you their personal email address.
And like for instance, it's exactly. I gave out I don't know how many cards last time at the career fair at McGill. And one of the things is you may have emailed, like let's say you email me, but the response is from somebody else on my team. She may be doing the legwork to get you to interview, right?
Hmm.
So notice the email where it comes from. So even though it may say Kim Porter, you emailed, if the response comes from Brenna Baudouin, but it's still New Frontiers, it just means we triaged your email and we're on the next step. So Lara's right. If you make the contacts at career fairs, even in your first year, you will know. And some of them have like a QR code that you can scan with your phone to a Google Doc. Like that's one thing we've started to do. And you just put in your information and it's quick and easy. And we keep the process moving.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
How
next
when
question.
how well would it be possible to substitute to agent? Okay, this is a really interesting question. If you, I saw that, yeah, this is super interesting. So I have people reach out to me to say, I saw a posting on Scalago. It's only 2 hours. Teachers going to the dentist. Teachers taking their child to a doctor's appointment. Um, getting their tires put on their winter tires put on their car. They don't want to be gone all day. They need a sub for a couple hours. These are hard to fill. These are our hardest ones to fill. But if that's what you want, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Um, and you pick it up. You can also tell the secretary, like let's say you're at Lester Bay, English Montreal, New Frontiers, whatever, where you're allowed to sub. You can tell the secretaries of your favorite places. You say, look, I'm really busy. I have a lot of class this year. However, Thursday afternoons, I'm free. So if you have anything for Thursday afternoon, think of me. And they will, because that's an anomaly. We don't always have people who are willing to come for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, let people know your availability. And if you
Yeah,
have the time and energy, especially to get out to the school and to
yeah.
spend a couple hours there, you're more than welcome to do that. All right, so those were the ones we got in advance. We also have some additional frequently asked questions that we're going to go over. I'm going to try and also check to see if we got any questions in chat. No, not quite. So let's continue with the FAQs for now, and then feel free. This is now kind of the Q&A portion. So if you do have a question that came to mind as I was presenting or as Kim was presenting information, you can pop those into the Zoom chat now. So can I apply to substitute teach without a full license? We talked about it. It definitely depends on the school board itself. And if your subject area is in demand or if you've done your field experience or internship there. I don't know if we need to really cover this again. I don't know, Kim, if you have any more to add.
I would say if you're doing a master's in education and it's uh, you're part-time or it's a lot of evenings and you want a part-time contract, that's also something to let schools know that you're available. I have two students in the master's program right now that are doing 50% contracts because they don't want a full contract, but why not make a little bit of money while you're in school and gain some experience?
Absolutely. And I would say again, I mean, it kind of across the board, the minimum requirement would be the 30 credits if possible.
Yep,
So it would
yep,
be
absolutely. Yeah.
after your first full year in the Bachelor of Education program.
Well, for me, the contract would only be given for the master's program.
Yes, yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have to have finished the EETC before applying for sub jobs? Um, I don't think it's an absolute
Right?
requirement, Kim, is it?
No, for I know
Sorry, I
I
didn't hear what you
haven't heard.
said.
Pardon?
Nothing really.
Oh, I
Watch some
think we
Ozark,
have someone who needs to
and now
mute their microphone. One
no,
second.
but
I
I'm
will find
more than
them.
halfway done season three.
Joshua
India.
Morris?
Yeah.
Yes, I will mute
There
them.
we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
So do I need so I have not come across this. I haven't to be honest, maybe another school board does, but I haven't had I haven't heard a recruiter say that about the English
No,
exam.
I haven't
So
either.
yeah,
I think
so
the requirement is that you finish it, I forget before which field experience at McGill, but either before
okay,
your third or your fourth field experience.
okay,
But it is from what I've heard also, it's not a requirement to apply before applying for
no,
substitute teaching jobs. However, like I mentioned, for the French sector, if you're an
yeah.
Anglophone applying to the French sector, they want you to have your CFranc or your CEL or one of the multiple French exams that are out there. They want you to have that completed before you apply.
One thing, Lara, if I can throw in a comment,
Mm-hmm.
for those of you in the French immersion program, you should be writing that in as a caption in every email and in every promote that on yourself because it opens the doors for substitution as well in both languages. So when you're applying to English school boards and you can also substitute in French, you should totally mention that you're in the French immersion program. For those of you who are bilingual by nature, you should also mention that in your emails on Sclago on anything that you any correspondence if you're bilingual. Yes, some school boards require you to write a French test if in the English boards. Some English boards like ourselves have an internal exam. However, you should definitely, if you're bilingual, you should be mentioning that to open, even if you don't want to teach in French. Mention it for your substitution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to highlight that front and center on your CV and
Yeah,
on your cover letter, that kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah,
We covered number 3. Can I substitute teach if I'm not from Canada? Yes, you can, but just make sure your work permit permits you to do so.
yeah,
And again, please check that before submitting an application,
yeah.
because you know you don't want to waste the recruiter's time, have them be interested in you as a candidate, and then you're not actually eligible. Okay. Number 4, Kim, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Okay, so this is actually a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
How is it possible to work in multiple school boards? Yes, you can substitute teach in as many boards that will allow you. What I would say is if you are using Scalago as your platform for a lot of it. Keep your calendar up to date. That way, if you take a job in a school that's not on Scalago, you've blocked that day from your calendar. Um, Other than that, yes. How will this affect my teacher's seniority? You don't gain seniority until you have a brevet. So it doesn't change anything for you to teach in multiple boards, to substitute in multiple boards. You truly only start accumulating seniority once you have your brevet and once you're on contract. Like it's a twofold that part. You
Hmm.
have to be on contract and you have to have your brevet in order to do seniority. So it's not yet relevant for you.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to that compensation slide that we saw, all of you will be
Right.
compensated as non-qualified teachers, right?
Right.
So once you have your brevet, have your teaching license, and you're being, officially recognized as a qualified teacher, that's when you start gaining seniority. So thanks for clarifying that.
Well, I just feel bad. Sometimes the students they take on small contracts at the end of the year and they
Hmm.
feel that they think it's for seniority and it's not, which we feel bad,
Ah,
but you have to have your brevet in order to start accumulating seniority and a contract. Like you have to have both pieces of that.
okay, got it.
Oh, I will
Um,
throw in this though, sorry.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Once you all the substitution you do, even when you don't have your brevet, it can help you towards your pay scale once you become licensed.
Mm,
So let's say in 4 years, you've accumulated 140 days of substitution over 4 years. You can get credited for a year of teaching towards your pay scale for those 140 days.
okay,
So
good
it's
to know.
it's yeah, so it does help when it comes to pay, but not seniority.
Okay, good to know. Um, I know Kim covered this question in the previous list of questions. Just do want to add one or two additional things about Bill 21. The first being that it's not going to impact your field experiences through McGill because your field experiences are unpaid. You're not an employee of that school board, so you can wear your religious symbols to public schools or public school boards as a McGill student in a field experience. Okay. I just want to make that clarification. The second thing I want to say is that some independent schools operate a little bit outside of the Ministry of like they still operate obviously within the purview of the Ministry of Education, but some private or independent schools are not impacted by Bill 21, and they can hire substitute teachers and teachers on contract and all that who do wear religious symbols. So we've had many students graduate from McGill's teacher education programs who wear religious symbols, successfully find employment, just not in the public sector, so not with public school boards. So just want to make that
Oh,
clarification.
yes, I'm sorry. I realized I made a very general statement and I didn't
That's
include the
okay.
private schools. No, I meant the public schools. The public schools,
Yeah,
it's law for us.
yeah,
So, yeah, but the private schools, yes. And I actually, at the career fair, I met a lovely young woman and we directed her to the private schools because they don't have the same regulations as we do.
yeah, yeah. So don't worry if you want to stay in Quebec and teach, there are
Yeah.
options. It just won't be in the public sector. Okay. How much notice are you normally given for a substitute teaching opportunity? Maybe Kim, you want to take this one?
So that's a what that could vary. That could be some teachers, like let's say an example would be a teacher who's having dental work. They know that every Wednesday for the next 6 weeks, they're going to be off in the afternoon. They'll post all 6 Wednesdays. Somebody's a teacher who's got an appointment with parents, following up, parents are aging, whatever, they have doctor's appointments, they know them 6 months in advance, they might plug them all in. Different situations, different things. And then you may have the phone call in the morning. It's very, very rare that for us in the Chateauguay schools, do you get a phone call in the morning? That doesn't usually happen. We use Scalago, but it's in our more rural schools. So let's say you're a McGill student who comes from Chateauguay, you might get a phone call from a school in Howick saying a teacher called in sick, nobody picked it up on Scalago, we need help. So, but I would say that the teachers put it up a day or two before. It can really vary all over the map. It really, really depends. The best thing for you is that you start to know I know we all don't answer our phones with numbers we don't recognize, but you start getting phone calls at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, you should answer that call if you're subbing. Because those are the schools that are probably that get to know you. They're calling like even like Lester B, if you're on a sub card or whatever, they might call at that hour of the morning. So I would definitely know the numbers of the schools. If you're on a sub card, know the numbers of the schools you're allowed to sub in. So you pick up the phone. But as soon as you really truly start subbing and the phone starts ringing in the morning, I would pick it up because they won't wait for you to call back.
Hmm. They'll
So
move on. They'll call the next
they'll
person.
move on. They'll move
Yeah.
on. And, so yeah, that would be my one suggestion about, last minute ones is pick up your phone in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it possible to substitute in elementary despite being a high school teacher?
If you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do I ensure I work enough days to make a livable income?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah, I think it depends on everyone's like home and financial situation. So,
Yeah.
I guess at McGill, especially in our teacher education programs, we don't typically allow students to be students part-time. So,
Yeah.
um, you would have to try and get as many contacts as possible and get yourself set up so that in any period, like for example, in a few weeks' time is reading week for us at McGill, but schools are still in session.
Yeah.
So you would want to fill every single day that week with a substitute teaching opportunity. Or again, we break for exams quite early in December.
Yeah.
However, schools continue through December. So you'd want to make sure to take advantage of every single McGill break that is not a school break to fill your days. Um, are there any substitute teaching opportunities during the summer? Kim, maybe you can answer that.
Not substitute teaching. No, not that I know of. A lot of us use Learn for the online summer classes.
Mm,
Some school boards have their in-house summer teaching. Um, I don't know. You know what? I won't speak for other boards. I don't know what other boards do for their summer substitution.
okay.
Yeah. But I would say that it'd be very, very minimal, especially if you're not a qualified teacher, because the schools that do their own summer school are the big, big, big ones.
Yeah.
So
Like
it would have,
EMSB does a summer school, maybe a
yeah,
couple classes of math, couple of science, whatever.
yeah,
So maybe you could sub for EMSB in the summer, but it would be most
yeah.
likely at the secondary level, I would say, less so at
Yeah.
the elementary
Oh, yeah,
level.
definitely secondary, not the primary.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the end of our additional FAQs. Have any questions come in through chat,
There
Kim?
was one about does Sir Wilfrid Laurier use Scalago? And I'm checking that now.
I think they do.
Yeah, I think so too. I
Yeah.
think so too. Let me see here. Just 1 second. Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they use it, and somebody else asked in the chat about a little bit more about Scalago. Scalago is a. Am I able to share my screen, Lara?
Um, if I give you access, I believe so. Give me a second. Here we go. Um,
How would I do that? Oh, share. Okay.
mhm.
Um,
1 second. Yeah, I will close my share, I think, and then it should work.
okay. Let's see here. All right. So I'm going to show this screen.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
this is Calago. Does it show? Oh, it doesn't show yet.
Not
Sorry.
yet. It is starting. Yes, now I see it.
Okay,
Perfect.
so this is what Scalago looks like on any day. You have your calendar, and on the side, so you would have the bulletin board where, for instance, if there was something posted, let's take out current day. Let's refresh. Oh, they have no absences right now. Why isn't that showing? Oh, maybe I'm not logged in right. I don't use the people side very much. I use the admin side. So normally there would be jobs here. You would see things that become available. Um, and then when you get in your profile and stuff, you would start putting in your information. For us, like see when a teacher goes off, you put a new job offer, you fill in the time and the date, and then you would see that information. And then as the substitute, this would be your schedule. And if you had things that were on your calendar, like let's say you go to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you would put yourself having events, but then anything that comes up on the 12th, the 11th, and 12th, you would get notifications. And how that work, and then so for Scalago, the other thing you can do is you go search, no, sorry, home. No, sorry, I don't usually do this side. Um, so you would be able to pick, like, this is what happens when you sign up. When you sign up, you see this, and then you go looking for the school boards that are closest to your home and that you want to see if they're there. And see, like, New Frontiers comes up, and then you can add yourself at all establishments as a substitute, things like that. So they make it quite user friendly once you navigate around it. Um, What's interesting about Scalago, okay, did I stop sharing?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. What's interesting about Scalago is that different school boards use it and it'll auto-populate your calendar when you start picking up stuff from other institutions that use Scalago.
Oh,
So it'll show that, oh no, this person's not available today and that person's not available. So and then also that teachers who you become that you substitute for often can actually select you as their substitute.
okay.
So, and then you would have a chance at it first for the first, like, I think it goes up for 6 hours. So, different things. There's different ways of Scalago working for you. So, for school boards that use it, it's quite convenient for students because you get to manage your own time.
That's awesome. I've actually never had my own sneak peek at it, so thank you for
Oh,
sharing that,
no.
Kim.
I wish it was
And
better. I apologize. I wish it was more clear.
no, that's okay. I think just having, a quick look to see the calendar feature and all that, and explaining that other institutions who also use it, kind of the platform talks to other things. I think that
Yeah.
that's just great information to know.
And on it,
Um,
I will say, those of you who are going to use Scalago, it's really important to, under your profile, to put in the information about yourself. Put in that you're a first year, second year, third year student at McGill, what you're studying, what your teachable is, if you're bilingual. Just signing up and not putting anything in, I'm like, okay, whatever. I need to know who you are, and the principals and the secretaries need to say, oh, this person is in the B.Ed program at McGill. We're going, this is a good person to use. Oh, this person's doing Phys-Ed. Okay, they're safe in the gym, you
mhm.
know. So writing a little story about yourself, putting up your CV, all of that is super important when using Scalago.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great tips to share. We've had a question come in
Sure.
about does having a French background attending French primary and secondary school change anything for substitute teaching opportunities at the French boards? Um, I would say my recommendation is to ask them directly. Maybe if you've done your schooling, especially at that board, they might kind of waive that requirement to take the CFRAN, but I think they're going to evaluate candidates on a case-by-case basis. So you should contact whichever centre de service scolaire directly. Um, do the English school boards continuously hire substitutes throughout the year, or does that only happen during a certain period? Um, so for EMSB, I think generally they do all of their hiring in a certain period, which is the spring. So you want to make sure you've submitted your application in February so that you're invited to they have this like massive interview night in March. But for folks like Kim at smaller school boards, you can apply anytime throughout the year. So just inform yourself what the best hiring practices are for the school board you're interested in. All right. I think we'll end it there. It's been just over an hour that we've had everyone here. Um, And I wish everyone the best in informing themselves a little bit more about substitute teaching opportunities in the Montreal region. I want to thank Kim Porter for being here today as well to share her
Thank you for having
expertise.
me. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
And for those of you who are joining us through the recording, um, I hope you have some great information to go off of here as well. And again, whatever is been included in today's session is current as of today. Things do change rapidly in HR anywhere, but also in the teaching community. So make sure you inform yourself on the most up-to-date strategies that you can use.